Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another card video. Today's card is a little bit different. The bottom edge of the front flap is the edge of the flowers. I'm using this set by Stampin' Up! Called Bunch of Blossoms, and it has a coordinating blossom builder punch. I'm also using this new embossing folder called Pinewood Planks. It's a little thicker, kind of like the next level folders. I also have this A2 die by Simon Says Stamp, which I use a lot to create curves in my cards. All right, so I'm going to start by stamping my outline for the flowers all along the bottom edge of this Stampin' Up! Cardstock. I'm using Melon Mambo. Next, I'm going to take Pink Pirouette. It's just a light pink, and I'm going to stamp the solid portion of these flowers on all 5 of them, just doing 5 at a time just because they fit on the bottom edge of my cardstock. And you can see it's pretty easy to line these up. Now for my third step, I'm going back to the Melon Mambo, and I'm going to stamp off on that next step. So I'll line that up, and you can see that I get kind of a more lighter version of the Melon Mambo, and it comes out with some really nice coverage when you stamp off. All right, so I trimmed off the cardstock so I wouldn't waste too much with the punch. So I'm just gonna line up each upside down. It's just easier so you could see it. And I'm going along here, and I'm realizing that I'm a little bit too close to that next petal. So you have a couple of options. You can cut this so that you don't have to worry about that. Put it in the punch and punch it out. Or, as I learned, and I did the rest of them this way, is you could start from the other side and it's much easier. It doesn't really touch the next petal. So I'm going to punch out all 5 of these. Now I have 5. And I went ahead and did this for 2 more flowers. So you need 15 petals all together. So once I have that done, I put them off to the side, and now I'm going to work on my leaves. I need about 5 leaves. I'm using Garden Green, and I'm using Stampin' Up! Paper again. I'm going to do these outlines, and I've positioned them so that they're the optimal position for the punch. And next I'm going to do my second step in Wild Wasabi, but I'm going to stamp off. So I'm stamping off, and this is the solid portion, the step for this leaf. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see when you stamp off, you get a really pretty light green color. And then just like the petals, there's one more step to this leaf stamp. And so I'm going to stamp it directly with the Wild Wasabi. So it's nice because you could get 2 different colors with the same ink pad when you use Stampin' Up! Just as I did with the petals, I cut the strip so that it'd be easier to punch these out. And then I just cut in between the leaves so that I could fit the paper into the punch. I'm also going to punch the star-looking punch out of some Stampin' Up! Black cardstock. This is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to cut 3 of these, 1 for each flower. And then I'm going to work on the final part of this flower. I'm taking some Pink Pirouette paper, and I'm stamping one of the stamps that comes with this set. I'm spacing it out. I'm stamping it in Hero Arts black ink, and I'm going to heat set it to make sure that it's not wet at all, because I'm going to be putting some powder on it. There's another stamp with some dots, so I'm going to stamp that on top of these black ones in some Versamark ink, and then I'll sprinkle some white embossing powder and heat it to set it, and then I'll punch all 3 of these out. So that completes all of the flower punching. Now I need to create a base for my flower, so I'm going to punch 1-inch circles out of this piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock. And this is going to provide kind of the piece of paper that everything sticks to and holds my flower together. The first thing I'm going to do is cover this whole thing very generously with some Tombow Mono Multi Glue. And my flower has 5 petals, so it's not going to be symmetrical where I can put them across from each other. So I'm just sort of trying to create a pentagon sort of shape, and I'm making it random because I don't want there to be a pattern to my flowers. I want it to look pretty natural. Like, I don't want them to be all in a row or anything like that. So the nice thing about the glue is you can kind of, once you get them laid down, you can move them around a little bit until they form a circle. And then you just press down so that you have a tiny little hole in the middle where all of the petals meet. The next step is to take the black star, and I'm just going to put a tiny dot in the middle and then little dots on all 5 points here. And you want to be careful, you don't want it seeping out the edge. I'm going to place this star so that the points are going up the middle of the petals. So if you position your petals pretty evenly, you should get a point of a star going up the center of each one. And then I'm going to add 1 more dot to the middle and add my final flower piece. So all of the pieces should now be stuck to my base circle, and I can pick it up and place it wherever I want. And you can see if I flip this over that it covers pretty much all of the petals. You want to make sure they're all glued to this circle. Now I did all 3 of those petals, and now I'm moving on to my smoky slate. I'm going to measure 1 7/8 of an inch from the bottom, and this isn't really a magic number, it's just kind of how it worked out when I first made the card, and I like the way it looked. So I measured 1 7/8 so that I can put each edge of my curved die on that pencil mark and make sure that it was even. And so now I'll place this on my card base and draw a guideline so that I can cut the card base. I wanted to cut in the same spot, so I'm just going to place my curved die on my pencil line, and I'll put some surgical tape on there, and I ran it through my Big Shot. I guess without thinking, I forgot to unfold my card. So when I ran it through about an inch or so and realized that I was cutting both sides, so I had to start over. I put my paper back on there, draw my guideline, and this time I opened my card so that only the front flap of the card base is cut with this curved die. All right, now moving on to the embossing folder, I sprayed my paper with some water, and the reason why you do this is so that it doesn't crack when you put it through the embossing folder. So I'm going to place it into this folder, and it's a really, really thick one. So my sandwich is going to be different. I'm going to remove both tabs from my original platform, and then I'll put my impressions pad on top of that. It's just a little thicker than an acrylic plate. And then my embossing folder with the crease going into the machine first. You can see how pretty the pattern is. All right, now I'm going to take my Tombow glue and cover my front of the card base because this is pretty textured, and so sometimes the tape runner doesn't work very well with it. Now you can see I have this thick white edge on the right hand side. My smoky slate, if you notice, was just slightly short when I started, and then the embossing folder kind of shrinks it up a little bit, so I just cut off the edge with my Fiskars Precision Trimmer. It cuts through all those layers without any problem. I'm going to add my sentiment to the inside of my card, so I've unfolded it, and I used some Hero Arts black ink in my MISTI to get it lined up in the lower right hand corner. And now I'm going to adhere my flowers. So I'm going to line it up so one of the ridges of my petals goes right up against the edge so you don't see where the gray ends. And so once I get that position and make sure it doesn't cover my sentiment, I'm going to flip it over very carefully without moving it. I'm going to draw a pencil line so that I know where to put my glue. So now I'm going to pull this away, and I'll grab some Tombow Mono Multi Glue, and I'm going to cover this whole area below the pencil line and make sure I hit all the petals to make sure it's as secure as possible. So then I'll take this and I'll put it down on the craft mat and put it right back where I had it, right on that pencil line. Now I'm going to flip this. Once I kind of press it a little bit, it sticks immediately, and then I can flip it over and reposition it just a little bit if I need to. I'm even going to pick this up. As long as you don't move it too far from its original position, you shouldn't have any problems. So this is a great way to position it mostly in the general way you want to, and then you can kind of fidget with it a little bit. So I'm going to do the other one the same way. So I'm going to put this left flower on next, position it so that it's touching that left edge, and then I'm going to hold it with my finger, flip it over, draw my pencil lines, and then I'm going to add my glue and then press down with my the front of my card, and then just kind of move around. You can see it kind of moved a little bit to the right because it's not going to be perfect, but I'm going to pick it up just a tad and scoot it over just a little bit and press it back down. And your glue should not be too close to the edge anyway, because you don't want it seeping out, because this glue dries tacky. All right, finally, I'm going to lower my center one a little bit just so I have a nice curve. Flip it over, and now I'm going to have even less area showing. So I'm going to go up both of the petals along the edge of the card. So I'm going to go back up this right petal here and draw this pencil line. You can remove or erase the pencil lines after you're done with all this. So I'm going to cover that with glue and then do the same thing I did before. So now that they're all evenly spaced out exactly the way I want them. Finally, I'm going to add my leaves back in. So I'm just going to position them where I want them. And once I get them all laid out, I'm going to take my tweezers, I'll pull them out, put some 2A glue on the back, and then put it back in where I got it from. So I use the tweezers, but it is a little bit of a tight squeeze if you have your glue closer to the edge. So you want to keep that in mind when you're laying down your flowers. And actually, I ended up just grabbing it with my fingers and just putting it where I want to. And then just press down securely. And I'm going to do that for all 5 of these leaves. And that will be the card for today. So I think the green added just that little bit of extra color. I really like the way that turned out. So I hope you enjoyed this, something a tiny bit different with the front and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.